Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless. Streaming live at kvi.com. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Had a little technical snafu to get the show rolling, but now we got things under control. Let's try that one more time. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at kvi.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Elon Musk is out at the Trump administration, and the media is trying to spin it all the wrong ways. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
So, you may have figured out by now, I am a man of faith, and I take my religion pretty seriously. Now, I don't care if you're religious or if you're non-religious. I don't care if you believe in God. What I do care about is if you fake believe in God. Why am I so mad about this today? Yesterday, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell, because he is under attack by Christians and Republicans and moderates for supporting Antifa over Christians who are having a concert in a park, he puts out a statement from prominent Seattle Christian and faith leaders to show how Christian he is. When you have to go get other people to talk about how great you are because you're in trouble, one, you've dug yourself a pretty serious hole. But why should I believe any of these people? Because here's the thing, Pastor Carrie Anderson, Reverend Reginald Avant, Rabbi Will Berkowitz, Alex Booker, by the way, the Associate Pastor of Social Justice and Outreach, so that should tell you what kind of pastors these are, Reverend Dr. Leslie Braxton, Reverend Dr. Kel J. Brown, Reverend Dr. Victoria Carr, Reverend Dr. Patricia Hunter, Douglas I'm not pronouncing that one, Reverend Dr. Brenda Salter McNeil, and Rabbi Daniel Weiner. If you sign something saying that the guy who is attacking other people of faith is right, I don't consider any of you legitimate authorities on faith. Sorry, not sorry. You know why? Because anybody who's a person of faith should say, those Christians, whether I believe with them, whether I disagree with them, and I don't believe in the whole Jesus thing, they have the right to worship where they want to worship in this country and not be demonized because they got attacked by Antifa. But you cowards of the cloth, you cowardly clergy members are covering for Bruce Harrell? That's who you're choosing over other members of the faith? That's who you're choosing? And I bet you all have coexist bumper stickers. I'm sure that you all do, right? I'm sure you all do. This was one that really set me off. Rabbi Daniel Weiner, Temple Deher Sinai. I bet I know more about Judaism than he does, because here's what he wrote. You would think he'd say, I appreciate him and all he's done for the Jewish community, right? That's what you would think? Nope. We are grateful for Mayor Harrell as he stands with the LGBTQIA community in defiance of those who would exploit and pervert the message of faith to support a hateful and bigoted attack on some of the most vulnerable in our community. You said you're a rabbi, right? Last time I checked, all that stuff was frowned upon in the good book. But forget that for a second. Why don't you talk about all the good things he's done for the Jewish community? Huh? Why don't you mention that? And say this is a guy who supports people of faith. No. Instead, you demonize Christians. What the hell is wrong with you? And everybody else on this list, for that matter. Everybody's about, these Christians were demonizing LGBTQIA. Well, guys, you may want to re-examine your good book. That's number one. Apparently, I know it better than all of you. But regardless of that, they were having a rock concert of worship in a park. Then they were having another prayer concert at City Hall. The ones who were doing the demonizing and antagonizing were the members of Antifa. And you're backing the mayor who backed them? What the hell is wrong with all of you? If any of you know who any of these clergy members are, you should call them up and cancel your membership in their synagogues, in their churches, whatever it is, because this is reprehensible behavior. It's cowardly. Absolutely cowardly. And Bruce Harrell, where are you? You in witness protection or something? You won't talk to the media. You won't talk to your constituents. You're just hiding. Coward. Hiding. Claim you're so good for religion. Spare me. I'm in politics because of how bad you are at religion. Let's take you back in time for those of you who may not have been around for the ride during the whole Ari Hoffman journey to politics. Go back to a young Ari Hoffman in 2017. Happy as a clam, living in Seattle. Had my complaints, who doesn't? But coaching baseball, running my companies, very happy guy. Yeah, we're doing the origin story here because Bruce Harrell is a key player in it. What did I do? I volunteered for my synagogue, and one of the things I volunteered with was the synagogue cemeteries. Our cemeteries, the Jewish cemeteries here, are a main source of revenue for the synagogue. So when a whole bunch of homeless, drug addict, pimps, prostitutes, and other criminals moved into the cemeteries, started defecating all over the place, doing drugs everywhere. We found people OD'd in the cemeteries. It's a bit of a problem. Young, naive Ari Hoffman, who isn't involved in politics at all, says, you know what? I'm going to take this to my city council member. But he was nowhere to be found. Who was my city council member? Bruce Harrell. He represented District 2, the largest Jewish community, not just in Seattle, but in Washington State. One of the oldest Jewish communities in the U.S., especially on the western side of the country. We've been here since the 1890s. In fact, since before then. But Bruce doesn't have the time for us. I end up meeting with former Seattle City Council member Mike O'Brien. He wasn't very helpful, shall we say. He was more excited about showing me the desk in his office, which was gorgeous, and I thought to myself, wow, that's got to be really, really expensive because it's like carved out of this really nice wood from a really big tree. That's really expensive-looking table there. Really nice conference table. I wonder if he got to keep that after he left office. It was magnificent, but not very helpful to our plight. But then again, Mike O'Brien was one of the people who enabled Homeless Inc. and created the Homeless Inc. we have now. Met with City Council member Tim Burgess. Tim Burgess right now works in Harrell's administration. Tim Burgess was less helpful. When I met with him, he sent me to the city planners because after my first meeting with O'Brien, when O'Brien had no suggestions of his own, I came to meet with Burgess with a list of suggestions. And I said, hey, there's all these empty warehouses in Georgetown. How about we turn them into homeless shelters and maybe deal with this? Oh, young Ari Hoffman was thinking, oh, maybe we just get them housing. We'll be fine. Oh, silly. How my ideas have evolved since then. He sent me to the city. Person at the city said, yeah, we can't do that. We can't change the zoning because then we can't change it back afterwards. I'm sorry, what? If you guys think homelessness is such a crisis, you won't change the zoning on some warehouses to get some people housed? That's what it is? You know, I lived in bunks at camp. They're not pretty, but you know what? They get the job done. This would have been nicer. But no, they wouldn't do it. Finally, what happens is I try to meet with Bruce Harrell again. And his press person refuses. Doesn't this sound like the MO? Doesn't this sound like par for the course? His press person Chase something refuses. So what happens? I post on social media. Yeah, mayor refuses to meet with the Jews. What happens? Everybody from my congregation apparently called his office. Wouldn't you know, like an hour or two later, yeah, Mr. Hoffman, big miscommunication. Would love to meet with you. Would love to meet with you. So I go to Bruce Harrell's office to discuss this with him. Here are the two things I walked away with from that meeting. Did you know that Bruce Harrell played UW football? Did you know that? I just want to make sure. Does everybody know that he plays UW football? His office, wall-to-wall UW football stuff everywhere. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, I get a jersey, I get a helmet, but I mean, you have kids, right? You got pictures of your wife, your kids, or anything, or we're just doing the guys on the football team, which was like 40 years ago. Okay. And then the other thing. I love the Jews. I'm so good to the Jews. I'm so good to the so good to the Jews that you wouldn't even have a meeting with us. But you're good to the Jews, Bruce Harrell. Mm-hmm. And then he said something that stuck with me. Bruce Harrell said, you know, the only way you're going to fix this is if you sue Seattle. But if you tell anybody that, I'll deny it. That's what he said to me. That is what he said to me. So here I am with no solutions left, and that's when I decided to run against Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell for Seattle City Council. I lost. I ended up being an op-ed contributor to the Post-Millennial. And then they called me one day and said, hey, this autonomous zone thing's happening. Would you mind going down there and covering it? And the rest is history. And then I found out Kirby Wilbur was retiring and so on and so forth, and that's how I came to have my own radio show. But this is all because Bruce Harrell's an incompetent buffoon. Let me fast forward a little bit, or rewind, depending on your perspective. It's my first year on air, and Bruce Harrell has decided to re-enter politics and is running for mayor. Now, he lives in my neighborhood, and where my office was at the time, this was my first year on KVI when my office was in Leschi. Leschi is where he goes and gets his groceries. Leschi is where his Starbucks is. So one day I walk in, and there's a whole crowd of people talking to Bruce Harrell in the Leschi Starbucks. And I wait my turn, politely, respectfully, and I walk up, and he's got a big smile on his face, which means he clearly doesn't remember me, which is fine. I'm sure he meets with a lot of people. And I said, Mayor Harrell, Ari Hoffman would love to have you on my show. Color drains from his face, and the smile immediately turns into a frown. And he goes, I want to talk to you. Okay, I want to talk to you outside. What is it, the football guy going to beat me up or something? So we go outside the Leschi Starbucks. And he says, you know, I really didn't like that you told people that when I told you that your only recourse was to sue the city, because I thought I told you that in confidence. And I go, fair, very, very fair. I thought you said you were going to try and help us multiple times and you're good for the Jewish community, and you didn't. And he just kind of stared at me. I don't think he's used to anybody talking back at him. I said, Mayor Harrell, you're the less crazy of two options, but I'd love to have you on my show for an interview to discuss your politics and your past. I still invited him on the show, even after that little thing. And here's what he said to me. I can't come on the show right now because I'll be branded right-wing. You know how it goes. But you call me as soon as the election's over and we win this thing, and I'll come on. Mike, have we ever had Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell on this show? Can you recall a single time where that has ever happened?
How about no?
Mm-hmm. Mike, do you know how many times I've asked Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell to come on this show? I think I stopped trying after the first year. It's been almost 4 now at this point.
Yeah, I'd say at least a couple times.
At least a couple times. Do you know how many times I've reached out to his office for comment?
Often.
Often. I can't even...
Frequently.
I can't even keep track. And I'll tell you something. You know how many times they've gotten back to us? 0. Do you know the only time his office got back to me was when I emailed them from my private account about security for the Jewish community when I found out that Hamas festival was coming to town, and Burgess got back to me. And we spoke to Burgess, and he said he was going to put us in touch with the Seattle Police Department. He did, and that was the end of his involvement. Anything we needed after that? No, wasn't there. So did they do something? Sort of. Because at the end of the day, Seattle Police Department didn't secure the synagogues. We did. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is not good for any religious person in this town. And he demonized Christians. So now his go-to is well, I'm going to hide behind people of the cloth. You know what I find fascinating is that I don't see any of the Seward Park rabbis on this list, because if Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell had reached out to any of them, most of them would have been like, who are you? Because we've never seen you in any of our synagogues. And I'm not saying a guy who identifies as Christian has to come to the synagogues, but you would think with the largest Jewish community in town that you'd at least show up to a barbecue event. And I know he's been invited. You know the only time I know of Bruce Harrell showing up to anything in the Jewish community? This is the only thing I know of. Perhaps there were more. I've lived here for 22 years, 21 years now. The only thing I know of him showing up to. After October 7th, there was a Hanukkah event at the local Jewish day school. And he showed up, and he lit a menorah, and he left. Yeah, there's a few problems with that. Didn't post it on social media. Didn't put it in his newsletters, because he's afraid of the left, and he was afraid of the left back then. And he's afraid that the pro-Hamasniks would see him hanging out with the Jews, and they wouldn't like it very much. Good for the Jewish community, my rear end. He is not. He's not good for any community. I love that he talks in these statements of, I'm the first biracial mayor. So he's Japanese and black, I believe that's what it is. How do you think the International District feels about Bruce Harrell? Because it was his failed policies that didn't just destroy the Jewish cemeteries, but also destroyed the Chinatown International District. And he says, oh, they love me in the International District. Oh, yeah, you know, I'm Asian. They hate his guts in the International District. He's one of the Seattle City Council members who supported all the failed policies like the Navigation Center being down there. Now he wants the kudos for ending the Navigation Center in that area. You put it there in the first place. You don't get credit for spilling spaghetti on the floor and then cleaning it up. You don't get credit for ruining a neighborhood with drug addicts and homeless people and then saying, well, now we're going to do something about it. Bruce Harrell is a national joke right now. Do you know the Babylon Bee's news site not to be ran a second article on him because he doubled down on his dumb statement? We read the first one yesterday. The second one is even more devastating because they said, as if you weren't dumb enough, you went and did it again. How stupid are you? So after being made fun of twice by the Babylon Bee, after all the bad headlines, yesterday on primetime, on Fox News, every single show opened with the Seattle story. We are a national joke again. So he's feeling the heat, and the pastor statement didn't work. The rabbi statement didn't work. Whatever other people he got on that list didn't work. So what does he do? He puts out this statement to Fox 13. We have had no official notice of an investigation by the FBI into the city, only a vague tweet, which seems to be the norm for the Trump administration. Free speech protections are fundamental to a functioning democracy, and my administration, we will not shy away from standing up for Seattle residents and values under pressure from the Trump administration. Hang on. You're demonizing Trump over all this? You shut down the concert early on Saturday. You did not stand up for freedom of speech or freedom of religion or freedom of expression or anything. A functioning democracy? You think Antifa makes a functioning democracy in Seattle? Give me a break. So what is it? Demonize Trump, demonize Trump, demonize Trump, demonize Trump. That's what he's doing. Has anybody seen Bruce Harrell? He's probably hiding out in Bellevue, would be my guess. How much worse can he make it? Well, the truth is he can make it as bad as the media will allow him to do. Here's Fox 13's headline on that article. Ready for this? In about 5 days, more than 30 people have been arrested at conservative Christian rallies in Seattle. What does that make it sound like to you? That 30 people were arrested who are Christians at these rallies in Seattle. Not one of the people who was arrested was a Christian. Most of them were Antifa. The others were far-left activists. But you guys just made it sound like it was the Christians who were getting arrested at these festivals. Our media has dropped the ball this entire story. Would you like to know what they're covering instead? Would you like to know? Seattle Times. Washington Attorney General Nick Brown won't make Survivor return for show's 50th season. I kid you not. That is the article in the local news section. Wow. Nick Brown won't make it for the 50th reunion for Survivor.
Well, not for nothing, just to be devil's advocate as we advocate for the devil here on the Ari Hoffman Show, most pro-devil show on the TV. There are other cast members returning from his season for the 50th. I'm just saying.
I'm sure there are.
It's not news.
I'm saying I get that it's news.
Okay, I'm just saying.
But at the same time, this is what we're talking about? All of you who say...
No, that's what I'm talking about.
No, that's what you're talking about, right. This is what the editorial board assigned while they were writing that garbage editorial we shredded yesterday, which they were writing in a hurry, by the way. Do you know how many people have reached out to me and have mentioned the work that me and Brandy and Jonathan Cho and others have been doing, Mario a lot more from the Linwood Times, and saying, if not for you guys, would the national media even know this was going on? Would they even know? Because the way that the Seattle media has portrayed all this is that the Christians are in the wrong and Antifa's in the right. They are covering for Bruce Harrell. They are not even holding him accountable. They just want a statement to say they had a statement. They seem to be afraid of him, that they might lose access. Everybody's afraid here. The media's afraid of him. He's afraid of you. These Christians are afraid of losing, not these Christians, these these wannabe, whoever the hell they are, and rabbis claim that they back him, but really they're just afraid of losing access, losing prestige. Everybody's afraid except for the Christians. Everybody's afraid except for the Jews that stood with the Christians. Everybody's afraid except for you, who's been spreading this story on social media, who's been listening every single minute to this story. We are surrounded by cowards. It's like Spaceballs with a different word. We're surrounded by cowards. There is no leadership in this city. There is no integrity in this city. And now we learned how many members of our clergy are compromised. They want to be leaders of their flock. They're not leaders themselves. They're cowards. Yeah, I'm calling you out. And if any of you want to call and yell at me about that because I said your name on the radio, email is ari@kvi.com. Phone number is 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. My social media channels, if you want to tag me and yell at me. Ari Hoffman Official at Facebook and Instagram. The Hofffather over on X. Was I not specific enough? You're a bunch of cowards. You're a bunch of cowards. All y'all. And you know how I know that? Because not one of you is going to have the balls to actually reach out to me. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ian in Tacoma. Ian, what's up?
So, in the same line as what you've been talking about, I'm a heathen. I follow the Old Norse religion. Laugh if you want. But I also make dreidels, and I'm the only glass blower that does it the way I do it in the Seattle area. And it ticked me off that I had Jewish people thank me for it, that we live in a world where they have to thank me for it instead of just letting people live their life however they want, worship however they want, and leave them alone. Voltaire, if I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
Ian, I want you to do me a favor. I've never seen your work, but I kind of wonder if I have seen your work. Do me a favor. Drop me an email with where I can get one of these dreidels, ari@kvi.com, okay?
Will do, Ari.
All right. I appreciate your perspective because, like I said, I don't care what you believe in. You shouldn't care what I believe in, anything like that. But shouldn't we all respect each other enough to do what we want to do? And here's the other thing, is that do you think that any of this would have gotten the attention it got if Antifa hadn't attacked? Would we even be talking about this right now? We'd be talking about Elon Musk all day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they made their own mess on this
headline
one.
about his chainsaw.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. Ian, appreciate your candor. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss as the show continues. More of your calls, more of your texts, plus now Bruce Harrell's getting sued by the former police chief of Seattle. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. You guys are very kind over on the text line, and very funny, I might add. Jeff out in Kent says it's the origin story for Grandmaster Jedi Hoffman. Very good. I like that one. Robin Lakewood says Bruce Harrell gave Seattle one good thing, Ari Hoffman. That's very good. Art seems to be convinced, Mike, that our little technical snafu was because we went head-to-head with Bruce Harrell, and he messed with our technology. Yes, exactly right. Stephen Oak Harbor says, are you sure all those pastors are legitimate pastors? Well, I know one of those rabbis isn't. I know one of those rabbis runs an agency that has nothing to do with actually Jews. It does food stuff, which is nice. It helps out the homeless and stuff. But, yeah, I have questions about that. Jason in Renton says KVI Promotions needs to take the segment, turn into a movie trailer for the superhero Hoffman. Very good. Yeah, and then over here, Gordon says, yeah, we're going to be selling a lot of those dreidels. Glass dreidels. Very, very good. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Pat in Covington. Pat, what's up?
Always fun listening to you, except when you get the blood boiling. Then anyway, for your first few minutes, you named off some of these characters that surrounded Bruce with his, the faith and anyway.
Yeah.
So I took the time to look up some of the churches they are ministers of, and I see lots of rainbows and colors and welcoming atmosphere our church has. And with the power of your airway, Ari, why don't you solicit a masochist to go into these places and see how welcoming they are when they're wearing a MAGA hat?
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. Hey, if anybody wants to do that, we can make that happen, but I don't want to be seen as targeting or doxing these people or anything like that. Maybe we'll just, you know what we'll do instead? I got an idea. Let's do something a little different, okay? Let's send them requests for comments to come on the show and try and explain what they said. How many of them you think will take me up on it?
Oh, it'd be a long show.
I don't think any of them will actually come on. I don't want to be holding my breath, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Pat, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, Christians ain't the only problem that Bruce Harrell has. On Wednesday, Adrian Diaz, the former Seattle police chief, filed a lawsuit in King County Superior Court against the city of Seattle and Mayor Bruce Harrell, alleging wrongful termination, retaliation, defamation, violations of state and municipal laws. Now, as we have said on the show before, we do not have a high opinion of Adrian Diaz as police chief. I happen to not think he was a very, very good one. I happen to think they hired a yes man. But apparently he wasn't yes man enough for Bruce Harrell, because it seems like there was a concerted effort to get rid of Adrian Diaz. This lawsuit represents the latest blow to Harrell, who's still facing widespread criticism for branding Christian worshipers as far-right fascist extremists. Oh, wait, was it Bruce who called them the fascists, or was that the Antifa, or was that the Seattle Times quoting the Antifa? I get confused about all the ridiculous insults they're throwing every direction. Diaz, who was appointed permanent chief of police in September 22 by Harrell, alleges that his commitment to upholding the Seattle Accountability Ordinance and Municipal Code, which ensures due process for officers, sparked a retaliatory campaign against him. In the complaint, it centers on Diaz's refusal to comply with directives from the mayor's office, including Harrell and Deputy Mayor Tim Burgess, to discipline officers without due process. Whoa. So the guy who claims he's all pro-police isn't actually pro-police? Oh, shock me. Didn't see that one coming after he threw the police under the bus for protecting the Christians and arresting Antifa. Oh, I'm so surprised. Oh, I've never been this surprised before. Come on, guys, really? Yeah, this kind of tracks. This kind of lines up. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your texts. Plus, it looks like Elon Musk is calling it quits from Doge, but the media is painting it like some kind of rift between him and Trump. What's actually going on? We'll give you details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. I am pretty fly for a white guy. Exactly. Why are we playing that song? Because coming up at 5:45, we are giving away two tickets to The Offspring at the White River Amphitheater on September 3rd. And in addition to that, we are also giving away tickets to an advanced screening of Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff, and so much more. Yet another reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. I got a text from Kelly in Seattle during the break. Kelly says, "Hey, Ari, I missed the first 5 minutes of your show. Will you be listing off those pastors again? So I'll tell you what, I'll do you one better. I'll send you the statement from Harold's office with all the pastors in it when I get a chance at the next commercial break. And if you want to know who those pastors are, all you got to do is go to Harrell, that's HARRELL.seattle.gov, or Google search for Mayor of Seattle, and then go to his statements over there. It's right there. If you're still having trouble, you be in touch with me. But yes, we will be discussing this whole mess again at 5 o'clock, but with completely new articles, completely new insights, and completely new sources. But I will make sure to mention all their names again. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Bruce in Seattle. Excuse me. Not Bruce. You're talking about Bruce Harrell. Bob in Seattle. Hey. Bob, what's up, man?
Hey, Ari, how you doing? Hey, as you know, I'm a firefighter who got fired for my religious beliefs in the city of Seattle. And Bruce Harrell has done us a favor because he has basically admitted that everything that we've been saying is true, which is also happens to be against the law.
Yeah. And here's the other thing about this guy is that he claimed to be pro-police and pro-public safety, just like he claimed to be pro-Jew, just like he claimed to be a Christian, just like he claimed to be pro the international district. He makes a lot of claims, and none of them are actually true. And now we're all seeing his true colors. In fact, Pastor Russell Johnson, who we had on the show the other day. If you missed that, you can get the podcast over at KVI.com. Pastor Johnson was on the show, and apparently he's been getting a whole bunch of emails and texts ever since this whole thing blew up with people who are claiming to be whistleblowers from inside of Seattle City Hall wanting to tell him dirt on what's going on with the administration. I'll just put this out to you whistleblowers out there. You guys want to be in touch with me? Let me know. Because one of the things one of these whistleblowers claimed is that Bruce Harrell prioritizes Chris Daniels from Como News, but make sure to censor people like me and Brandy and Jonathan Cho because they won't get back to us. Apparently, there's a do not respond policy on people like us, which we've known about this for some time, but they keep delaying the public disclosure request in order for us to get it. Bob, you have any experience with them delaying public disclosure requests for you?
I have open public disclosures for that are more than 2 years old. So just so the listeners know that when you have a religious belief that is at opposition with something the city's doing, you apply for a religious exemption. You and all of the people that were part of our lawsuit applied to the Harrell administration to request permission or approval for a religious exemption. So the people that hate Christians are the ones who get to decide if your religion is adequate in order for them to give you an exemption.
Right. In fact, I'll make it even better for you, or even worse, depending on how you're looking at it. So think about this for a second. Bruce Howell was saying he wants more police officers. He wants more firefighters. The easiest thing he could have done is hired all you guys back. And a lot of you were still around here. But it was Bruce Harrell who refused to hire all you guys back when all this was happening, so it was a self-defeating move. What a fool. Bob, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Ron in Tacoma. Ron, what's up?
Yeah, so let me help you here. I believe some of those, I think they're political clergy. You know, Democrats have their paid useful idiots, and I'm pretty sure that's who those guys are. But just to throw out there, Chris Tucker from Rush Hour, I think he coined the term blackanese. I think, isn't that what you were going with?
Oh, no, let's not do that. But Bruce Harrell is the one who claims that, well, you can't be mad at him. He's biracial. He's the first biracial mayor we've ever had, so you're not allowed to get mad at him, you crazy Christians, right? Ron, appreciate the call, appreciate the humor, appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Switching gears entirely, back to politics for a minute here. So, in Washington, D.C., yesterday, Elon Musk puts out a tweet thanking President Trump for his time with Doge and for his time in the administration, but he's done. You know you can only be a special appointee to the government without congressional hearings for 130 days. And that's what Elon Musk said at the beginning of this. That hasn't stopped the lamestream media from running with this narrative of, oh, there's some split between him and Trump. Is Elon Musk disappointed they didn't make bigger cuts? Yes. Am I disappointed they didn't make bigger cuts? Absolutely. We've talked about it on the show multiple times. Look, the White House needs to send rescission requests to Congress for them to approve to actually roll all this back, or it will have all made for great radio, great television, but it won't have actually solved anything. So the White House has some work to do. Congress has some work to do. Those things have to be done. But you know what's crazy to me? Elon Musk, I looked up his net worth before all this and after all this. He's still the richest man in the world by leaps and bounds, but this has cost him millions of dollars. He did this because he wanted to clean up America. He is exactly what the founders and framers of this country were. A businessman, had another job, whatever the case may be, who decided, I want to make my government better. I want to make this country better. And in a normal world, we would be praising this guy. But the left is so anti-Trump that what they do, they attacked his car company. They go after Tesla dealerships. They go after I saw a post from some website here in Seattle of lunatics where they talk about drilling people's Tesla emblems off. There's with a picture of them doing it. This stuff is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Elon Musk deserves our thanks. And I'll tell you something else that we need to thank him for. Doge Washington. I found out when I made that call for volunteers for Doge Washington as kind of an offhanded joke, but serious at the same time, when all these people came to me and actually started doing the work, and they do great work on social media, that we weren't the only state where that happened. It happened in other states as well. There's a movement to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, where people are calling out waste, fraud, and abuse. And Elon Musk did that. In a normal world, he would be hailed as a hero. But here the Democrats hail him as the enemy. They demonize him. They ridicule him. They attack his companies. Now, most of these activists are not on the take from the government. They're just so hardwired into anything Trump does is bad. But who are the people who are mobilizing these stormtroopers against Donald Trump? You got people like Chuck Schumer, who's talking about showing up to people's town halls when they disagree with them. People like Hakeem Jeffries. Who's benefiting? I mean, just look at these congressional and these senators, how much money they make when they first go into office and how much money they have when they leave office and how much money they were making in the meantime. People were worried they were going to be losing their meal ticket. We should all thank Elon Musk. Do I have my issues with Elon Musk? Absolutely. Absolutely. Well documented, Mike might say. But at the same time, we should be thanking him for this. He put country above himself, came to do a job at great personal and financial cost, and we should all be thanking him. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, tariffs. They're on, they're off. Judges think they have any say in this whatsoever. We'll discuss when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I think the whole discussion over tariffs is because most people don't understand how tariffs work. Most people don't know civics. They were too busy being brainwashed with DEI in high school or college, and nobody ever taught them any of this stuff. So let's go back to why I'm even discussing this today. On Thursday, after President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs were blocked by the U.S. Court of International Trade, an appeals court has reinstated them. According to CNBC, a federal appeals court granted the Trump administration's request to temporarily stop the blocking of the tariffs from the lower court. This comes after the Trump administration was asked whether Trump would pursue other avenues to implement tariffs. After being asked if the administration is looking into other ways to implement the tariffs, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said, "The president's trade policy will continue. We will comply with court orders, but yes, the president has other legal authorities where he can implement tariffs." So you know what? Let's go to the good book. I don't mean the Bible. I mean the Constitution and U.S. law, shall we? Because you've got a whole bunch of people saying the president can do whatever he wants, and you got a whole bunch of people saying Congress gets to do what it wants. They're both right, and they're both wrong. In the U.S., the power to impose tariffs is shared between the executive and legislative branches with specific roles defined by the Constitution and subsequent laws. Congress, the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, grants Congress the authority to regulate commerce with foreign nations and to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. This includes the power to set tariffs. Congress can pass legislation to establish or modify tariff rates, as seen in the laws like the Tariff Act of 1930, otherwise known as Smoot-Hawley. You might have learned about it in school if you didn't go to a Seattle public school. The president, while Congress holds the primary authority, the president can impose or adjust tariffs under certain conditions, as delegated by Congress through specific statutes. Key examples include, but are not limited to, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Trade Act of 1974, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. In practice, the president often initiates tariff actions like President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum in 2018, or tariffs on Chinese goods under Section 301, but these actions rely on authority delegated by Congress. Congress can override or modify these actions through new legislation. So who's right in this case? Nobody. Everybody's wrong. What should have happened is the president should have used the tariffs as leverage, like we said at the beginning. And then Congress should have come along and said, okay, these countries didn't comply. Here's the tariffs we're going to levy. That is how this should have worked. And what the court is saying that ruled against the Trump administration is exactly that. They're also saying it's not an emergency. Now, that's where they screwed up and where they got overruled by a higher court. Why? Because you can claim economic emergencies. But now we're into a weird place. Because what do we do all the time? Hey, Democrats and Bob Ferguson, stop slapping emergency on everything that's not an emergency. Now, here they're using a certain statute, which they have way more legal ground to do so than Bob Ferguson, who goes, I just want to ban electric cars, and it's an emergency for the climate. Ban electric cars, ban gas-powered cars. And it's an emergency for the climate. Trump administration has a lot higher standing here because we have national security implications, because it is causing debt implications, which is a national security implications. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. You're going to have an easier time making that case. But at the end of the day, what should be happening here is the president should say, I want to tariff these guys, I want to tariff those guys, I want to tariff those guys. Congress, go enact it. And Congress should be doing it. But I don't see Congress doing much of anything right now. In fact, I'm kind of wondering what Congress is doing. What are our friends in Congress doing? You didn't do the Doge cuts, and you didn't do this. What are you guys waiting on? What are they doing over there? Oh, we're right. They're on vacation this week. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up?
Hey, nothing much. You know, you mentioned something about Hakeem Jeffries. He's a Democrat who hates Donald Trump. You know, I heard a deal the other day on the news, I think it was over the weekend, of this past weekend, saying that, you know, from Hakeem Jeffries, that what these severe Medicaid cuts will do is cause people to die. And in my view, that's a lie to begin with. And if he keeps spreading it, somebody's going to have to end up calling him out on it.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, remember what happened when Bernie Sanders was spreading that kind of stuff? Somebody shot up a congressional softball game. Gotta be careful when you make this stuff up out of nowhere, guys, because crazies listen to what you tell them. Appreciate the call, Leonard. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, I promised you an analysis of all the people who are running for mayor of Seattle. You're going to get it, just like I promised. Give you all the details on this fun little bunch. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Trump says no more Chinese Communist Party students in our colleges, and the Democrats object. But before we get to any of that, yesterday we had a caller who called in and said, Ari, I don't want Bruce Harrell in office. I don't want Katie Wilson in office. But do we have any good candidates? And I promised that caller that I would do the research and go through all the candidates. So that's what we're going to do right now. Sorry it's a little late, caller. You know who you are, but we got a lot of phone calls today. But here's who we got. You got Bruce Harrell, who's a lifelong politician and been hit in the head too many times while a football player at UW. That's his entire background, by the way. Oh, he was a lawyer for 5 minutes, too. Okay. He was an ambulance chaser lawyer, if I'm not mistaken, which is why he told me to sue Seattle. Okay. Just making sure we got it. That's him. Do you think he's been a success or a failure? Now, let's analyze this realistically for a second. We got a real problem here, which is you need a groundswell to kick him out of the primary. So in August is when you have the primary. Top two get to go to the general election in November. Problem is, if you don't keep that groundswell going, also, let's say you get rid of Bruce Harrell in the primary. Let's say it really happens. Let's say it's between him and some other more moderate candidate, and you bounce Bruce Harrell. Well, then that more moderate candidate is going up against Katie Wilson. And the problem with Katie Wilson is she's going to galvanize the far left base in this city, and probably a bunch of Democrats are going to assume she's a Democrat and hop on that bandwagon. So whoever this person is has to be able to get through all of this. All right, let's see who our contestants are. Number one, Rye Armstrong. Okay. Native from the Pacific Northwest, born in Seattle, raised in Kenmore. Identifies as openly non-binary, queer, trans. Okay, you know what? I don't care how you identify. I don't. But here's the problem. He's a member of the Seattle LGBTQ Commission. They are one of the ones who issued a statement condemning the Christians. I don't care how you identify. My issue is this is no different than Bruce Harrell or Katie Wilson. Right there. What's his platform? Housing. Prioritize building more housing to address affordability with a focus on accessibility and collaboration. Not terrible. Public safety. Advocates for community-based... Stop. Nope. Done. Absolutely done. Nope, we're done with him. Okay, no to Rye Armstrong. Clinton Bliss. He's a doctor, small business owner with a focus on community, health, and economic development. He ran for mayor in 2021, finishing with 0% in the primary. Do you think this guy has viability? Anybody? Likely not. So I'm just going to say no Clinton Bliss. Going down the list here, Joe Mallahan. Joe Mallahan's the one that got mentioned to me because he was out with Andrea Suarez from We Heart Seattle picking up garbage over Memorial Day weekend. Former vice president at T-Mobile, bringing corporate leadership experience, ran for mayor in 2009, narrowly losing to Mike McGinn, 51% to 49%. He got the Seattle Times endorsement last time. Interesting. So he can run, he can gain traction. Can he still gain traction? This, you know what his campaign would be? It's your second chance. Your second chance. You had the chance to do the right thing the first time. You didn't. You got McGinn. Mishwin, whatever they called him. He had a whole bunch of terrible nicknames. Mike McGinn, yeah. Okay. So this guy focuses on crime, homelessness, housing costs, community outreach, criticizes city leadership for slow action, public safety, homelessness, advocates for crisis through housing and services. Housing aims to tackle affordability through zoning and development incentives. Yes. Okay. Stresses outreach to rebuild trust in city government. All right. Joe Mallahan. That's not bad. Joe Malloy, Detroit native, currently unhoused. Wait, hang on. Is this the one we discussed before, the homeless guy who's running for office? Is this one? The one who's living in city-provided housing? That guy? Identifies as likely autistic, shaping their advocacy for marginalized communities. has focused on mutual aid grassroots efforts for the homeless and disabled people over the last 2 years. So, member of Homeless Inc., is that what you're saying? Serves on the board of a Seattle-based shelter organization as a key organizer pushing for new shelter beds in 2025. Background includes real estate experience. You're homeless, dude. What kind of real... Couldn't have been that good at it. Sorry. It's the truth. He wants the homeless New Deal. Oh, God. Okay. Let's forget the homeless guy. Scrolling. Thaddeus Whelan? Texas native, military veteran, stationed at JBLM. After 4 years in the Army, now calls Seattle home. Studied public policy at Princeton University with a focus on social diaspora, gentrification, elections, and policing. Works as a federal employee but prioritizes community involvement. Okay. What does he run on? Affordable housing. Yeah, all right. Public transportation. Funding solutions. Seeking to secure funds for Seattle's pressing issues. Well, what is that going to be? Public policy. He leverages his academic background to propose evidence-based solutions for gentrification and community needs. Okay. I mean, okay. I don't know if he's going to get any traction, but okay. Then there's Katie Wilson, co-founder and executive director of the Transit Riders Union. Oh, you mean Kshama Sawant's band of lunatics? Great. Fantastic. Led campaigns to raise the minimum wage in Tukwila, Burien, unincorporated King County, the highest in the U.S., also a columnist, progressive activist with a career building coalitions. No prior elected experience. Okay, so this is going to be a disaster if she gets elected. Continuing on. David Tuneman. There's nothing about him. No website, no nothing. Oh, this is my favorite. Mike, you ready for this one? This is last, and we saved the last one for best. Isaiah Willoughby. Have you guys heard that name before? Because I know that we have definitely mentioned him on the show. Isaiah Willoughby, he's been mentioned, but not in a...
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
So, this is the same guy who was sentenced to 2 years in prison for setting fire to the Seattle Police Precinct during the 2020 Autonomous Zone? Just making sure I got that. He's now running for mayor of Seattle, my friends. That's right. Rachel Savage has apparently moved on to run in city council for District 8 as opposed to running for mayor. It's too bad. I thought she was interesting. But apparently when Joe Mallahan entered the race, that was the end of Rachel Savage running for mayor, and instead she said city council. So I got a question. Do any of these people sound appealing at all? Joe Mallahan seems like the only one with an actual shot. I wasn't paying attention to elections back in 2009. Maybe my vote would have helped put him over the edge if I was paying attention to elections. But, I mean, he sounds like the only real viable option for the people in this audience. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. A lot of you have been asking for the names of these pastors and rabbis and other faith leaders who backed Bruce Harrell against Christians. Let me give it to you one more time. And you can get this over at Harrell's mayoral website. Pastor Carrie Anderson, First AME Church, Reverend Reginald Avant, pastor at the Madrona Grace Presbyterian Church, Rabbi Will Berkovitz, CEO of Jewish Family Services. Doesn't have a synagogue, huh? Just runs an agency? Okay. Alex Booker, associate pastor of Social Justice and Outreach, Queen Anne Baptist Church. Reverend Dr. Leslie D. Braxton, senior pastor, New Beginnings Christian Fellowship. Reverend Dr. Kelly J. Brown, senior pastor at Plymouth United Church of Christ. Reverend Dr. Victoria Carr Ware, senior pastor at Queen Anne Baptist Church. Reverend Dr. Patricia L. Hunter, American Baptist pastor. Douglas Avizab, I still can't pronounce it, executive minister, Evergreen Baptist Association of American Baptist Churches. Reverend Dr. Brenda Salter McNeil, who doesn't have any agency or church or anything listed to her. And Rabbi Daniel A. Wiener, Temple DeHirsch Sinai. These are people who are backing Bruce Harrell. From some of these organizations that I know, they are very, very, very progressive, and I noticed that every single one of these statements says something about LGBTQIA. So, wait a minute, let me make sure I got this right. Bruce Harrell's defense for demonizing Christians is, well, we support LGBTQIA and the Bible doesn't, but we support the Bible, so we're disagreeing with the Bible. You think any real Christians are going to buy into any of this? You think this is going to make life better? You think this is going to give you street creds with the Christian types? No. Do you know what this is? This is for the media. They wanted the following headline from the media. Faith leaders come out in support of Bruce Harrell. Now, Mike, there's been a lot of bad headlines. I don't think I've seen that one yet. I don't think I've actually seen that one because I think the media at this point, as bad as the headlines are, and as much as they're demonizing the Christians, you know what they're mad about? That he's not doing interviews. No interviews with Chris Daniels, the people he allegedly favors, no interviews with any of them. And at some point, the media doesn't like when you blow them off. We've been blown off for 3 years. I feel like the James Franco meme where he's sitting there in the noose first time. That's us right now, really, because we've dealt with this all the time. Speaking of clergy members, by the way, according to My Northwest, a group of Catholic bishops and priests have filed a lawsuit challenging a new state law that requires any member of the clergy, priests, rabbis, imams, elders, etc., to be mandatory reporters, even if it came out in confessional for anything related to child safety and child abuse. Now, this is the one we've discussed on the show before where I said I had some challenges with this. So I got an issue. On one hand, I completely understand it. I completely do, and you don't want people covering things up. I get it. Believe me, I do. But on the other hand, you're messing with the First Amendment, and it seems like a very cut and dry First Amendment case. You don't get to mess with the religion. I want to know what you think. What you think of this law. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Call or text. So according to Ryan Colby, Director of Communications for the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, the law forces priests to either break the seal of confession, a sacred promise to keep confessions 100% confidential, or risk jail time. The seal is one of the most deeply held traditions in the Catholic Church, dating back over 2,000 years. Breaking it isn't just a big deal. It means automatic excommunication for individuals who have devoted their lives to serving their God. Imagine the pressure priests are now facing to choose between their faith and the law. Washington Democrats who pushed the legislation forward argued that religious liberties should not extend in cases where child safety is on the line. Governor Bob Ferguson signed Senate Bill 5375 on May 2nd after the Washington State Senate passed it on a 28-20 vote. Mike, didn't we have Noelle Frame? Wasn't she one of the sponsors on it? We had her on the show, and she got really mad at me when I brought up all this, and she said, well, I'm a survivor of this. I go, I'm very sorry to hear that. But at the same time, you got serious First Amendment implications here, and her excuse was, well, I'm a survivor of this. And, well, I feel bad for you and all that. That doesn't negate the Constitution. The Archdiocese of Seattle said a meeting requested by the bishops of the state of the Washington with the governor was ignored. Fergie was ignoring pastors who wanted to meet about this? Hey, maybe they could have come up with a compromise, don't you think? Maybe they could have come up with a solution. Maybe, just a thought. Could have maybe said, hey, let's do this and let's try and figure something out. We want to solve the problem. We don't want kids to be at risk. But Fergie didn't want to meet with them. How many things aren't solved in politics and go to lawsuits because Democrats refuse to meet with people? Oh, wouldn't know anything about that, would I? Right, Bruce Harrell? Archbishop Paul D. Etienne of the Archdiocese of Seattle warned that clergy face excommunication for complying with the law. In a statement, he argued that we must obey God rather than men. Washington was one of just 5 states in the country that did not list clergy as mandatory reporters of child abuse or neglect before the bill's passage. So Colby continued, what's even more head-scratching is that the state isn't targeting professions like lawyers or others under similar confidentiality rules, even though church already has strict policies in place to protect minors. The lawsuit, which could have huge implications for religious freedom in the U.S., takes aim at what the bishops believe is a law more focused on punishing priests than solving real issues. This is fascinating. This is really just going to be a fascinating thing to watch. I'm kind of curious how this all shapes up, but I really want to hear from you guys. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, here's one. This was actually over on the text line. It says, what idiot is going to confess knowing that the priest must tell the authorities unless the person is lying and had a grudge against the priest? Now, that's fascinating, by the way. What if priests now get set up where somebody goes to them planting something that isn't true, asking them to break the seal of the confession by going to the authorities? That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. Over here, Ari, This one's saying they want me to run for mayor, or they want Dory Monson posthumously for mayor. I think he would do a better job than Bruce Howell right now. Truly do believe that. Mayor? This one here from Robin Lakewood. Stalin would be better. At least he knew what a woman is. Oh, man. Oh, man. You guys are harsh today. Here we go. This one from Dan. He says, faith leaders come out in support of former Husky bench warmer. Are we going to call him that? Mike, can you do me a favor? You know more about the foosball than I do. Can you find out if he was a starter or a bench warmer? Because that would crack me up. Could you just look up his stats? I mean, I know they won a championship or something when he was with the team, but is he one of the guys who he was the water boy when they won the championship, or did they actually, did he actually contribute meaningfully to them winning whatever it was? Yeah, exactly. So you guys seem to have some very, very strong feelings about this stuff, and I appreciate that. We're going to do some following of the story the more it develops and have more for you as it makes its way through the court system. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, apparently the Democrats want spies for the Chinese Communist Party inside our colleges. That's who they're fighting on behalf of now. I kid you not. You can't make this stuff up if you tried. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And speaking of miseducation, just to clear up some information we got in the last one, while the text was funny, the Husky bench warmer, Bruce Harrell actually had a very good football career. So it seems like he was a good football player, terrible politician, terrible Christian, terrible person. Maybe too many whacks in the head. We know a lot of good football players who suffer from a problem resulting from that. I think there was a movie starring Will Smith. Just throwing that one out there. Switching gears. The U.S. will be working to aggressively revoke the student visas of Chinese nationals studying at universities in the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has announced. This comes as there may have been higher tensions between the U.S. and China over trade and other relations. According to the Post-Millennial in a statement released by the State Department, Rubio said under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department will work with the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. We also revise visa criteria to enhance security of all future visa applications from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. So, have we had issues with this in the past? Does the name Eric Swalwell mean anything to you? He had a whole bunch of CCP interns in his office, in his bed. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it. Allegedly in his bed. So, this is a real problem. This is a legit problem. What, you think of Hamas has students here that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't? Now, you got to look into their backgrounds, but you got a different problem. And this is the complicated thing. How do you vet them? Hey, China, would you mind telling us which ones are your spies? Oh, that one's a spy, but not that one. Right? They're fine, tussle, as Mike would say, right? That one's perfectly fine over there. They're fine. That's the problem you have. Of course, they're trying to paint every Republican as a racist for supporting this, but we got serious issues with China. They're trying to infiltrate every level of our government, and they've been successful in some cases. He also announced that the U.S. will announce visa restrictions for officials in other foreign nations who are complicit in censoring Americans. This one cracks me up. You know about this nonsense in London that's going on right now in the U.K., where basically they're letting the Hamasniks have the run of the city. They're letting actual jihadis have the run of the country. But you post something bad about them on social media, you get arrested. If they said something and you got mad at them over it, you get arrested, not the jihadi. He says foreigners who work to undermine the rights of Americans should not enjoy the privilege of traveling to our country. Whether in Latin America, Europe, or elsewhere, the days of passive treatment for those who work to undermine the rights of Americans are over. After April 2nd, when Trump announced high tariff rates on China as well as nations throughout the world, China retaliated, heightening its tariffs against the U.S. products. In reaction, the Trump administration hiked its rates to 145% tariff on nearly all Chinese imports to the U.S. The two countries later resolved to lower trade barriers after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent struck a deal with Chinese officials. However, tensions still remain high. The Chinese Communist Party has been stealing intellectual property from the United States, an estimated cost of $600 billion per year, according to a report from the 2023 Congressional Select Subcommittee on the CCP. Additionally, there have been widespread national security concerns surrounding the social media platform TikTok, owned by ByteDance. Now, let's be real about TikTok for a second here. Trump keeps delaying it, hoping somebody's going to buy it. And then you're assuming that China's actually going to sell the thing. Guys, I understand that Trump's worried about losing the social media influencers who support him from TikTok, but can't we all admit that TikTok is a huge national security concern? We don't know what they are pulling off your phone. We only want American companies to spy on your phone, right? Just making sure I got that. So, underscoring the tensions between China and the United States is AI and the arms technology race, which has been apparent as China has moved to stop exports of rare earth minerals to the U.S., which are key factors in high-tech microchips and other technology driven by AI. The Trump administration has also been moving to onshore chip manufacturing with firms like NVIDIA. The company is committed to investing $500 billion in manufacturing its Blackwell AI chips here in the U.S. This is why, guys, this whole CHIPS Act the Democrats want to do, it was all good in theory, but the problem with it was it didn't actually make you manufacture companies, have manufacturing companies here. You do that by incentivizing business growth or penalizing if they go somewhere else. So it looks like the Trump way is actually the way that's working. Meanwhile, this cracks me up. A professor at Harvard had her tenure revoked and was fired from her post after an investigation concluded that she had manipulated data in her studies on dishonesty. Hang on. Can we say that again? So you're doing a study on dishonesty and you're manipulating your data. Just making sure I got that right.
Wait a second. I thought Fake News Friday was on Friday. It's only Thursday.
This one I actually got from Not the Bee originally, and then I found the original source on it. So, according to WGHB, the Harvard Corporation made the final decision to revoke Harvard Business School professor Francesca Gino's tenure earlier this month, and sources told the outlet that administrators notified business school faculty of the decision last week. Harvard had launched an internal investigation into Gino's work in 2022 after Data Colada, a blog run by behavioral scientists that examine academic research, raised concerns over her work. The investigation concluded that she had manipulated data to support her hypothesis in at least 4 studies. Gino has been known for research on honesty and ethical behavior. Following the investigation, the school placed her on unpaid administrative leave. The school also initiated a formal review of her tenure at the request of Harvard Business School Dean Srikant Datar, per the Harvard Crimson. Hang on. Can we just be real about this for a second? So, you guys didn't do this to Claudine Gay. In fact, you gave her a golden parachute when she was found to be falsifying her data. Could it be that Claudine Gay's skin color is one and this person's is a different? Could it just be that for a second? Just pointing that out. Also, Harvard can do the right thing. So you're saying when somebody's unethical, you'll fire them from your school? And you'll even risk a $25 million lawsuit, which she filed against the school? But here's the thing. You won't do it for people who support terrorist organizations? I'm just saying. So you guys can do the right thing. I think that's what pisses me off more than anything else. This is an entertaining article. But at the same time, it shows Harvard can do the right thing if it wants to do the right thing, which only makes it worse that they're doubling down on discriminating against Jewish students. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, the San Francisco Public School District announced a new grading policy that will allow students to graduate classes with a score as low as 21%. The Grading for Equity method eliminates homework and weekly test scores from a student's final semester grade. Instead, there will be one test at the end of each semester to decide if a student has passed the class. The final exam can be retaken several times. So you just got to memorize this test until you get it right. Maria Su, the superintendent of the San Francisco Unified School District, enacted the new guidelines without seeking approval from the board. According to the nonprofit, the changes will impact 10,000 students across 14 high schools in California's Bay Area. Students may submit assignments late, fail to attend class, or choose not to attend at all without consequences to their academic performance. As of current, receiving an A requires a minimum score of 90%, while a D is set at 61%. Under the new scale, a student can obtain an A with a score as low as 80%, typically a B-, and a D score with as low as 21%, otherwise known as an F. So, wait a minute. You're saying you are setting these kids up for failure because they won't actually learn anything? They may just, at best, memorize a test they have taken 5 or 6 times before? Look, I suck at algebra. But you give me the same test 5 or 6 times and you show me what I got wrong each time, I'm going to eventually get that test right without showing my work. So I'll get an 80, which means it's going to be an A here. I remember there was a class in college. You had to take Hebrew language, and all of us treated it like a joke because we'd all taken Hebrew language for our entire childhoods going to Jewish day schools. We all treat it like a joke. And I remember on the first day, I had this coughing fit. I just started coughing and coughing. I wasn't faking it. I was really sick or something. And the teacher says, "Come back when you feel better." So smart Alec Ari Hoffman said, "Okay, no problem." I came back for the final exam. I literally came back for the final exam. And she goes, "Who are you?" And I go, "I was sick. You said to come back when I feel better." I got a B- in that class. Just FYI, I got a B- in that class on that final exam. So yes, you can game the system in situations just like this one. Trust me, as somebody who has done it himself, educators, students, and parents have expressed concerns regarding the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, particularly how it would impact academic standards and college readiness. According to Newsweek, San Francisco School District's experiment comes despite Donald Trump's executive order signed in January that will eliminate DEI programs in federal taxpayer institutions. So does that mean that this school district is about to be the next one taken on by Donald Trump? I got a very real question at this point. You have so many fights in so many places, and they're all worth it. At what point do you realize you're just maxed out? That's the concern I'm starting to have about the Trump administration. How many fronts can you fight a battle on or fight a war on at any given time? When we come back, one of the warriors who's fighting the battle against the trans Tifa activists and actually got assaulted by them at Tuesday's protest will be joining us. That's up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Remember, if you missed any part of the show, you can always get our podcast. So whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Remember, while you're there, to rate, subscribe, and share. So that way you and your friends never miss a moment of the show. So on Tuesday, we had this big rally for Christians. They were having a big concert outside of City Hall, calling on Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell to apologize or resign for the comments he made targeting the Christian community following Antifa attacking a concert of theirs in Cal Anderson Park on Saturday. Now, I looked at the crowd, and I saw a whole mix of people. I saw white, I saw black, I saw Hispanic, I saw old, I saw young, I saw Jews with the Christians, I saw everything you could possibly imagine. And on the other side, I saw a bunch of white 20-somethings who are attacking all these people claiming they stand up in the name of diversity. And that's what I got a real issue with more than anything else. Well, not more than the violence. Violence is bad. But joining me now to discuss what happened, who was there, is Ari. Ari was there and got assaulted by these crazy lunatics who are at this. Ari, thanks for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Ari.
Such a pleasure. I'm glad I finally get to talk to you. You've become a little local famous celebrity around here since doing some of your appearances. Why'd you decide to go to this event?
So it's actually kind of interesting because I have a very conflicted faith. I was raised Catholic. I strongly support like secular values. I believe everybody has a right to worship as they please. And, I'm really a constitutionalist. And I saw the concert that Antifa stormed, and I saw what it was about, and I saw a bunch of really good Americans getting stormed by people that are basically subscribing to the ideology that harmed me. And I was very conflicted, and I wanted to go out there basically to show my support because those people were showing their support in support of the idea that we should end trans ideology and what it's doing to children, that we should end the indoctrination of children, that we should not support medicalization that causes irreversible surgical harm to young adults and children.
So, Ari, you talk about this happening to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, about it, what exactly happened to you to set you on this path?
Like as a detransitioner or as a transitioner?
Well, whichever way you can take it in whichever direction you want.
No, I medicalized like 17 years ago. I was a confused CSA survivor. I was gay. I went into an LGBT center. I was taught gender as a construct for interpreting my issues. I took that and I believed it because I was appealing to authority figures. I went there and I talked to therapists. I went there and I was in a support group, and I took what the authority figures told me was wrong with me and I believed them and I ran with that. And I lived my life by that for over a decade and a half. And recently I've kind of come out of that with a realization that I was lied to. And it's funny because what I see when I look out there at all these 20 somethings is a bunch of other young people who are lied to. And they're caught in this notion, like a sunk cost fallacy, where you've subscribed to something, you've started altering your body, you've started living by that, you've started destroying your social relationships. And it's hard to get out of that. It's almost like having a religious faith that you subscribe to and start tattooing onto your body.
And then things go in a different direction. So given your story, given what happened with you, you show up at this event, you want to see what's going on, you support everybody doing whatever it is, you support freedom of speech, and yet you were attacked. So these people who claim they represent you and represent your lifestyle seem to not like you very much.
Well, I kind of see trans as a type of ideology. Like you have to subscribe to the ideology and the constructs it presents in order to be a part of it. And like I've moved past that. Like I had every surgery that you have under trans ideology, and it didn't make me a woman. A man cannot become a woman. And when you start saying things like that are really basic, it conflicts with their beliefs and they become very violent. And like I went there just to say the truth. And they attacked me. The last event I went to was the first event I went to. It was a Riley Gaines event. And I just went there with a sign and I said what I believe. And I was surrounded by Trantifa and pinned into a corner by police. And this time I went there in a public street on a sidewalk where I'm supposed to be able to speak my mind as an American, and I was immediately followed. I was followed around the block and stalked. Like they got in my way. They would not let me walk. They forced me into the street multiple times.
This is horrifying, and I'm so sorry this happened to you. This is going to sound like a weird segue. My wife watches a lot of cult shows, and the thing that you walk away with from watching a lot of these cult shows is that what makes it a cult is you're not allowed to leave when you want to go. So we joke about youth organizations we're part of as kids or religion or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, if you want to go, you can go. It sounds like in this case, with a certain kind of ideology, you want to go and they don't want you to go.
Right. And that's the thing, like, because transgender ideology is based on this construct of gender, right? And they'll say like, oh, like, a man can be non-conforming, like men can wear pink and like girls can like fishing. They'll say this as like a thing they say. right? And it's true. Like girls can like fishing, boys can wear pink shirts. But at the last protest I went to, I was criticized for wearing a pink shirt. I had like a nice pink shirt with my tan suit, and they're like, if you're going to detransition, pick a different color for your shirt. And it's just crazy because these people are actually reinforcing wild traditionalist sexist standards. Like they go and say, oh, because this girl likes blue and she's a tomboy, she likes fishing, she might have a guy brain. There's no such thing as a girl with a man's brain. It's a girl. There's
Yeah.
no such thing as a boy with a woman's brain. It's a boy. Maybe it's a non-conforming boy, maybe it's a gay boy, but it's still a man. It's still a boy. It's still a male.
I tell the story about my brother. My brother loved My Little Pony growing. Loved it. Loved playing with My Little Pony. Did that make him a girl? No. And you know what? Now he likes The West Wing and Seinfeld. So our ideas change. The things
Right.
we're into change. And it's a little crazy that if you want to experiment with something and then they won't let you go back because they're so dedicated to the ideology, whatever it is, even if. So let's take the Republican Party. Sorry to make this about politics for a second, but a lot of people are saying, I'm voting for Donald Trump. And it has this massive tent for Republicans right now where there's Republicans of all stripes, all colors, all shapes, all sizes, all ideologies under that banner. RFK Jr., definitely not a Republican. Elon Musk, not a Republican. Joe Rogan, not a Republican. And you would think you want a bigger tent. But it sounds like this ideology that you're talking about doesn't want a bigger tent. They just want you to conform or else you don't belong.
Right, right. And if you don't subscribe to gender and you don't believe that a man can magically become a woman because he feels like one inside, I don't know what feeling like a woman feels like, but apparently that's a feeling you can have, then you're an apostate, you're a bigot, you're a Nazi. Like I literally was called a Nazi 2 years ago when I was actually pretty far on the left and working in leftist politics, purely for saying it was a mental illness. At the time, I did not call myself detrans. I called myself a trans woman, and I was just saying, hey, this is a mental illness. Like, I mean, obviously that's how, like, it's a very logical thing to think about yourself when you have these issues and you're medicalizing because you're obsessing about your body, right? That's mentally unwell. But I was seen as like a crazy bigot for saying that, and for saying that what was the other one? No country has an open border policy. That's insane.
I'll tell you this, is that if you're being called a Nazi, of course, if you're being called a Nazi and you're being called a bigot, and it's just because you're giving your opinion, and your opinion is very reasonable things, it sounds like you're in good company. I get called a Nazi multiple times a day. I mean, if you follow me on social media, you know these kind of things. I get called a Nazi more than any Jew. It's a little nuts.
Speaking of, when they called me a Nazi the first time, I was literally the policy advisor for the only Jewish candidate for city council for Seattle. Oh, and he was a white supremacist, transphobic, and ableist. He had a Puerto Rican trans-identified male who's autistic as his policy director, but he was a white supremacist, transphobic, and ableist.
Unbelievable. Ari, in the last few minutes we have with you, what's the path forward? You're going to keep giving your message. You're speaking out. You're going and doing interviews. You're showing up to these events. What's the path forward out of this? What's your message you want to give?
I want people to know that people are being misdiagnosed. They're absolutely lying to our society. This entire thing was constructed in the 1920s by people like Magnus Hirschfeld, who were trying to find a way for non-conforming gays to escape fascism. Autogynephilia is real. It's the massive majority of people who are male who identify as trans, and they're lying to everybody. Children aren't being diagnosed appropriately. There is no such thing as true trans, and the entire thing is a sham. Politicians need to step up and shut it down. These surgeries, these surgical harms, they're irreversible. There's no going back for me. There's no going back for Layla Jane, who had a double mastectomy at 13 years old after being indoctrinated into this ideology at 11 years old. She just lost her lawsuit because of statute of limitations. And she realized that she made a mistake at 17 years old. So she ideated at 11, double mastectomy at 13 years old, realized she made a mistake at 17 years old, started seeking legal recourse, statute of limitations. She's 20 years old now. She no longer has breasts.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
That's what's going on.
Ari, your message is a very, very important one. And anytime you want us to amplify it, this show, I know we've only sort of become acquainted recently, but what we talk about on this show is kids all the time, because we're always about protecting the kids. We're always about keeping kids safe, making sure kids get the best education. If we can ever help amplify your message, all you got to do is reach out. You know how to get a hold of me, okay?
I appreciate it.
All right, Ari, thank you for being so brave. Thank you for standing up in the face of so many people coming after you. And thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a great day, Ari.
You too. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including 2 tickets to The Offspring, 2 tickets to an advanced screening of Ballerina, $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. Yet another reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Well, my friends, we have some news. They are trying this nonsense again. A new COVID variant that's been spreading worldwide has just been detected in Washington State. Oh, no. Here we go again. Oh, it's going to kill us all. It'll kill us all. Really? This is what we're talking about? By the way, pretty sure this thing ripped through my house already. Mike, I don't think I mentioned this to you. So over Memorial Day weekend, we didn't do anything. We did nothing. So I was feeling kind of lethargic, just kind of down, kind of tired. My wife was also feeling kind of lethargic, kind of tired, kind of down. My daughter, full-on cold, headache, fever, the works for the whole thing. Because, you know, COVID is the flu/cold season, right? So there's a spring flu. So there's a summer flu. You guys going to try and shut down our businesses again? You guys going to shut down our churches? I mean, Bruce Harrell's working on that already. Did he call Antifa to go shut down the Pursuit Northwest Church this weekend? Wouldn't put it past him. Because that's what the left really wants. The left doesn't care about saving your life. The left cares about control. There were people during COVID who cared very, very much about saving people's lives. They were misled by some of the scientists. They were brainwashed by some of the scientists. Some of them meant very, very well. Politicians didn't mean well. Politicians saw it as an excuse to enact their radical ideology. And that's exactly what we did. The Constitution, the rules that we have, were created because of people like Jay Inslee, because of people like Bob Ferguson, because of people like Bruce Harrell, who would like nothing more than to abuse it, as evidenced by the fact that when their progressive protest stormtroopers come out to support them, they don't condemn them, they condemn the Christians. Those Christians got too many ideas. So that's what we saw during COVID. It was an excuse for authoritarianism. Remember that Jay Inslee had emergency powers for 975 days. Why do you need emergency powers for 975 days? That's the kind of thing where we need 30 days to recover from a hurricane, or a month to recover from a hurricane, or 6 months to recover from a hurricane or an earthquake or something. I get it under those circumstances. But do you remember when Jay Inslee finally announced he was giving up his emergency powers? He said, "Not, I'm giving them up today. But what was it, like 2-3 months from now? That's when I'm giving up my emergency powers? That's when the emergency was over?" And by then, everybody was checked out. By then, everybody was done. By then, nobody believed his nonsense anymore. That's just because he wanted power to run through his agenda. And he did. And he did. And somehow the dum-dums around here managed to get full control over the Washington State Legislature, and they can continue doing it. We are still feeling the effects of COVID today. Prices still haven't come back down. A lot of people still haven't gone back to the same work conditions they had beforehand. I still see those Looney Tunes wandering around in masks. By the way, the new bad driver, for all the stereotypical jokes we make, it's not race, not religion, not any of that kind of stuff. The new bad driver is somebody who's driving alone in their car with a mask every single time. It's always somebody like that who's holding up traffic, usually in a Ford Focus or a Prius or something like that. That's usually the case. There are still people suffering because they haven't regained the business they lost during COVID. And what are we looking at? 5 years later now? 5 years. Oh, are we at the 5-year anniversary of 2 weeks to flatten the curve? So now there's a new COVID variant. You know that the reason it was COVID-19 is because there were 18 other COVIDs before it. Is this one they're going to try and lock us all down with? I don't think anybody's buying it this time. Definitely not. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, the latest fallout regarding Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell's bungling of this entire mess with Christians wanting to have a concert and Antifa disrupting it. Plus, a lot more from Washington, D.C. Also, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free-for-all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. You want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, 2 tickets to The Offspring, and tickets to see an advanced screening of Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff. But before I get to any of that, Danny Westneat from the Seattle Times. Ugh. Why do we give this guy airtime? So he has a headline that caught my attention, and once again, I got clickbaited. The headline is, Seattle got owned in the latest free speech battle, which it did, by the way. I was expecting this to be a hit piece on Bruce Harrell, and then I remembered, wait a minute, this is the Seattle Times. They didn't do hit pieces on the mayor. Otherwise, they would have called him out for demonizing Christians, not helped demonize the Christians. What was it the Seattle Times called them? Fascists, right? Seattle Times called them fascist. Far right-wing extremists, right, Seattle Times? So Danny needs part of that organization. He writes, a few hours after the Christian rally in Seattle last weekend that ended with 23 protesters getting arrested. Stop right there. They're not protesters if they turn violent. Protesting is standing there with a sign that says Free Nelson Mandela. Once you attack people, you assaulted somebody. You're a criminal. You're a violent agitator, aggressor. If you're wearing the black bloc, you're Antifa. Why is it always the left is always protesters, and on the right it's always far-right extremists who voted for Donald Trump and Elon Musk? That's what it always is. So, he says one of the founders of the event could scarcely contain his glee. So, he quotes Ross Johnston, a co-leader of Mayday USA, which put on the event. We'll get to how they describe it in a second. We started a riot today in Seattle during worship in the gospel. The church is alive. Now, how do they describe this? Ross Johnston, co-leader of Mayday USA, which put on the anti-abortion, anti-trans event. You mean the pro-Christian event? Just making sure I got that. But as opposed to saying the Christian rock concert, which assumes there are a whole bunch of Bible thumpers, you went with the way to trigger the left. A few minutes later, he explained why he felt it was such good news. That Up With Jesus rally had ended in a melee, he says. So they're protesters, but it ends in a melee, not a riot? Danny Westneat's really cleaning this up here. He says, revival is messy. Acts 19 is when Paul started a riot in the city of Ephesus. It's game time. Who's ready? No more cute, weak Christians, he later said. Can anyone doubt, Danny Westneat writes, after reading these posts, that Mayor Bruce Harrell was exactly right when he said, and I quote, today's far-right rally was held here for this very reason, to provoke a reaction by promoting beliefs that are inherently opposed to our city's values. Stop. You're still defending Bruce Harrell. You know, the Seattle Times editorial board tried to save their butts yesterday for their bad reporting with that editorial we wrote to you. But basically what you're saying here is Bruce Harrell was right. We agree with him because of what one guy said, not because of the peaceful worshipers who were there at a rock concert. So, one guy says this, and you use it to demonize everybody again. Again! And by the way, he made his point perfectly clear. You're just reading into it. So, Danny Westneat says, walked right into that one, Seattle. The street pastor quoted above said they were seeking resistance because resistance always increases salvation. It's part of their shtick, a worship warfare movement where the world is at the brink of destruction and they are standing in the breach. You know that Christian pastors typically go to where they can find people and confront people. You know that, right, Danny Westneat? Right? I don't need to explain this to you. Now, even though the Mayday group held 2 rallies in 2 Seattle locations, Danny Westneat has to qualify this, as is their First Amendment right, and were protected by Seattle police at both events, we are nevertheless going to be treated to endless rounds of nationally televised grievances about how they were persecuted. This, apparently, is to also include an FBI investigation. Time out. Danny, you literally just said First Amendment right. People tried to violate their First Amendment right, including your buddy Bruce Harrell, who shut down the concert early. That's a violation of the First Amendment. They should not expect to be attacked. You're blaming them because the Seattle Department had to save them from being attacked by your Antifa activists, by Bruce Harrell's Antifa activists? So basically, you're demonizing the Christians again? Guys, the Seattle Times is a lost cause. You're never going to fix it. Never going to fix it. So he says we gave this group exactly what they sought. By the end of the evening, Tuesday, 31 people have been arrested across the two events, mostly accused of tussling with police. Once again, making it sound like the Christians were involved, most of them accused of tussling with the police. No Christians were arrested, just the Antifa radicals. 31 of those were on the protester side. 0 were on the side of the far-right group. See? Protesters in the same sentence. It's hard to imagine what greater gift Seattle could have given the May Day tour as it rolls off to its next rally site this Saturday in Los Angeles. Seattle, we've got to get better at the free speech battle. A lot better. Instead, we appear to be drawing all the wrong lessons from this humiliation. The Harrell administration is under fire from the left for allowing the group to speak on Capitol Hill at all. One of the challengers for his seat, Katie Wilson, said afterward, a fundamentalist Christian anti-trans family values demonstration should never have been permitted in Cal Anderson Park in the heart of Seattle's historic LGBTQ neighborhood. It's a public park, though, so anyone can speak there. The city can deny permits if rallies are too large for the space or for other logistical reasons, but the city doesn't and shouldn't police the contents of rallies. The remedy being proposed here is, hey, we've determined in advance that your group's views are too offensive for this part of town, so you have to move that over to the other part of town. For one, the other part of town would cry foul. Probably no neighborhood in Seattle considers itself a match made in heaven for a stage of anti-trans Christian crusaders. Holy cow. My God. But the larger point is, do we really want city bureaucrats judging what's offensive? Okay, wait a minute. He's about to turn himself around here. Danny Westneat's got this, finally. Doing that for every group that speaks in Seattle, sort of pre-speech vetting, sounds like First Amendment violation in the making. Yeah. No, Seattle needs to get stronger about speech. Groups like this come here to prick the blue city bubble. One of the organizers said a few months ago that they chose Seattle because it is Antifa headquarters, where thousands show up for BLM. Again, they sought the contrast. Well, they got it because think about this, Danny. You guys had no problem with Antifa rioting for how many days? How many months did we put up with the Antifa riots in the autonomous zone for? But you got a problem with the Christians just because you disagree with their political ideology. So he says, why give it to them, at least on their terms? Surely there are ways to stand against it without getting into yet another bitter dispute for our own police. Now Danny Westneat's going to lay out his strategy for change. You ready for this one? Here we go. I would say, ignore them. That would be what I would say, right? Me, Ari Hoffman. I would say, you don't want to deal with them? Ignore them. Stop showing up and protesting them. You're giving them more visibility. In fact, here's the thing. If Antifa hadn't shown up this weekend, would any of you have even known this concert would have happened? No, of course not. Here's what Danny Westneat writes. My vote is for mockery. Like when protesters disrupted a Nazi march in Olympia by joining the march dressed as goose-stepping clowns. Classic. Nothing diffuses a group-seeking confrontation like performance art. Did you just compare the Christians to Nazis? Just making sure I got that right. Also, you're saying to mock them? That's your big strategy. So mocking Christians for being Christian is what the Seattle Times that published this piece of dreck is now supporting. On top of that, performance art? You're advocating for the theater kids again? Who do you think Antifa is? Did you see the sumo Antifa out there as part of this fun? Meal Team 6 that was out there as they're being called? That is a theater kid who clearly was stuck being one of the props people or sound design or making the sets and didn't get to be the lead role. Clearly, that is what's going on here, guys. And yet, you guys are saying the solution to this is to mock these people more? That's what you want to do? Somebody on the Capitol Hill blog, he writes, suggested buzzing future anti-gay or anti-trans rallies with drones carrying rainbow flags. Unfortunately, it only takes a few to trigger a melee. The mayor laid the blame on anarchists who weren't part of the regular protest. That's a regular protest here in Seattle. You guys keep calling them protests. The regular protest includes BLM and Antifa. Could be, he says. But this story where black-clad anarchists show up and start smashing things has been dogging Seattle protests for years. 'Cause, Danny, they're not protests. They're violent, direct action. In fact, Antifa says that on their sites. You are misgendering, mislabeling what they call direct action. He says it's long past time that we, the city, concerned citizens, the protesters themselves, figure out ways to put a lid on the violent part. Instead, so you want to go mock them and buzz them with drones. That's what you want to do? That's your big solution? Instead, the focused post-protest has been, how can Seattle limit the speech permits of people Seattle doesn't like? The Seattle LGBTQ Commission asked for new city policies to prevent groups espousing hate from occupying historically marginalized spaces under the guise of free speech. Sorry, but no, he writes. Finally, some ray of sunshine. That sounds illegal and a nightmare to enforce. You really don't want government officials involved in picking and choosing or ranking based on speech. It goes against what liberalism aspires to be about. We've got to figure this out and quick. Another Christian rally is coming in August. The Proud Boys are on the... Proud Boys? Hang on. Mike, did I miss something here? Were there Proud Boys around this weekend? Did I see them in the... No, Baby Yoda knows. No. Did I see them anywhere this weekend?
How about no?
How about on Tuesday? Did we see Proud Boys anywhere?
Two flashes mean no.
When did they enter the conversation? Oh, it can't just be Antifa. We always have to say Antifa with Proud Boys, like anti-Semitism with Islamophobia, right? That's what it is? The Proud Boys? Has anyone... Are you now calling the Christians Proud Boys because they have American flags or something? What are you getting at here? What? Enough of this nonsense. He continues, that right-wing rally last weekend, as the mayor called it, newsflash, it just owned us. Look at how excited those quotes are at the top of this column. The harsh takeaway is that street pastor hit the jackpot. Given what a success the visit was for them, we can probably expect a cottage industry of groups to be booking their own battles with Seattle. Danny Westneat from the Seattle Times. He doesn't get it. He gets some of the First Amendment implications, but he doesn't get that by demonizing people you disagree with, you only make them stronger. Strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Antifa beat up Andy No. He is now one of the experts on Antifa, consulted anytime there's something having to do with Antifa, and has over 1 million followers on social media, which he can monetize. Antifa made that by being violent knuckleheads, by being violent activists, by being violent militants. Antifa made this problem too. So somebody aspires to create a little bit of a ruckus. You guys handed it to them. And Danny Westy is suggesting in the future you show up to mock them. How about you just don't show up at all? Did the Jewish community show up to beat the hell out of the Hamasniks when they came for that Macklemore concert in the heart of the Jewish community on the Sabbath? I really wanted to, but we encouraged everybody not to because we didn't want to give them more traction. And what was the story of the weekend afterwards? Not Jews showing up to beat up anybody because we didn't. What was the story of the weekend? Macklemore said F America on the stage of a Hamas fundraiser. Macklemore lost his song being played in Seattle stadiums. People were calling for him not to be part of the ownership group of the Kraken anymore. People don't want to go to his concerts anymore. People don't want to download his music anymore because they found out he's a full-on anti-American anti-Semite. So we just ignore him now. Just ignore him. Or stand there, actually be peaceful. But you know what the problem is? The left is the party of violence. You guys don't know how to not be violent. You guys are now a national joke, as you have been for a while. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell has to keep doubling down on these bad statements, so much so that the Babylon Bee has made fun of him for a second time. So we read the article yesterday where they made fun of him the first time. So he's got this one right here. Here's the headline from Not the Bee, their actual news site when they can't believe something's real. Seattle mayor doubles down after attacking Christians over public worship service. As if it wasn't bad enough. I love the picture, by the way. You know what the picture is? Hang on. I want to load up a soundbite for this one. Hang on. We're going to put this one right here. Okay. All right. We're ready to go. So, behind Bruce Harrell in the image is the two announcers from Dodgeball. Because what are they trying to imply for this or doubling down with this failed strategy?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Brilliant. Brilliant that that's the picture. Over the weekend, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell denounced Christians for a worship service at a downtown park. Well, those troublesome extreme right Christians made Antifa mad by glorifying Jesus Christ in public. On Monday night, after receiving widespread backlash, Harrell decided to dial his wokeness up to level 11 and infer that Christians are racist. 23 Antifa thugs were arrested for assaulting police as they attempted to disrupt and attack the worship service. None of the Christians at the event were cited for arrest or arrested for violence. Harrell has repeatedly slandered them as bigots and said in public statement that he would be allocating city resources to review all circumstances of the Christians' approval for the worship service, despite the fact that there are broad First Amendment requirements around permitting events. Tuesday at 5 p.m., a group of local Christian leaders will meet on the steps of the Seattle City Hall. This was written before that. Since Harrell is so keen to label himself the second black and first biracial mayor, perhaps he should tell his constituents that he is apparently the first mayor to point a gun at a pregnant woman while arguing about a parking spot at a casino. Oh, did you all think we forgot about that? Do you remember back in February, KUOW ran this article? And we thought it was a hit piece at the time. We were very clear at the time. We said, somebody's trying to take down Bruce Harrell. Because this article, this news was buried for years, which means only his inner circle knew it. His niece, Monisha Harrell, who was part of the administration, quit the administration, said it's sexist, and has been giving interviews on how terrible this administration is. Somebody's clearly trying to take down Bruce Harrell to help out Katie Wilson. But I'd rather help out a more conservative, more moderate candidate like Joe Mallahan. I think that's a better way to go in this case. But clearly, his own administration is turning on him at this point because somebody leaked this story, that he pulled a gun on a pregnant woman. Yes, this actually happened. KUOW broke the news that on the night of September 27, 1996, then Omaha resident Bruce Harrell, a young attorney recently appointed to a controversial housing authority board, was involved in a parking dispute outside Ameristar Casino in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Harrell and Rose Sanchez, one of the individuals involved, agree on several basic facts. Both parties arrived around the same time and disputed a parking spot. Rose Sanchez recalls that Harrell in a red Jeep Cherokee slowly driving past her husband Jose, and her mother pointing a handgun at them after confronting them over the parking spot. She said, "We felt threatened. All we did was pull into a parking spot." He acknowledges displaying a firearm but denies pointing at anybody. In contemporary media interviews and statements to the outlet, he claimed the Sanchez's may have mistaken his watch or phone for a gun. Wait a minute. Dude, you said you displayed a gun. So what are they mistaking for a gun? At the time, he told reporters he had been carrying the weapon for protection due to the death threats he had received following his housing board nomination. It was not common for people to carry portable phones in 1996. Casino security was alerted. Law enforcement responded shortly after 12:30 a.m. Harrell initially downplayed the situation, but a subsequent search of his vehicle revealed an unloaded .25 caliber Raven semi-assault automatic pistol and a clip with 4 bullets. When the officer attempted to cuff him for safety during the search, Harrell reportedly resisted. Sounds like a real winner there. Oh, they may have thought my watch was a gun, but there was a gun in the car? Yeah, I know who I'm believing in this one. It's not because I dislike Harrell. Harrell was arrested, booked into the county jail on 3 charges: aggravated assault, interference with official acts, carrying concealed weapon without a permit. Wait a minute. So basically, these are a whole bunch of the charges the Antifa nicks get all the time. No wonder Bruce Harrell likes them so much. No wonder he threw the police under the bus. 10 hours after his arrest, he withdrew his name from consideration for the housing authority post. At the time, Omaha Mayor's chief of staff attributed the decision to this incident. The charges were dismissed 6 months later in what county prosecutor described as an unofficial deferred prosecution. He said that Harrell was required to apologize to the arresting officers. He also cited Harrell's claim that he felt threatened by a Hispanic group as a reason for his decision to drop the case. A letter written by Crowell in 2024 in Harrell's display of the weapon as non-threatening with the incident as minor, no formal lawsuit emerged from the event, though Harrell reportedly retained legal counsel and claimed his constitutional rights had been violated due to racial profiling. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on, this sounds familiar. So now you're claiming the Christians don't like you because of racial profiling, because you're the second black and first biracial mayor? This all sounds very, very similar. I've heard this somewhere before. This has been his MO for decades. He was a moderate in disguise. He's a far left liberal pretending to be a moderate to win election. This story from 1996 is exactly the same as the story we're telling in 2025. He has not changed. this is who he is. And it's time we don't have him in office anymore. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. Dan Bongino lays out his vision for the FBI and also what they're going to do to Seattle thanks to Mayor Bruce Harrell. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Guys, I am appreciating all the kind words over on the text line about today's show. This one from the 206. Love the show today, Ari. Thank you for your honesty and for standing with us. Also, just want to remind everybody that coming up at 5:45 is your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including two tickets to see The Offspring. That's right, my friends. Yet another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com. Download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up? Is I'm worried you're a bit lonely. Nobody's calling in. But there's also a poll on Avwriter Joe on X that a potential write-in for Seattle mayor, and sadly, you, Mike on KVI, and Saul Stady are all losing 100% of the vote to someone else. And I just really think it's time that we discuss having a write-in campaign to make you mayor, because Katie Wilson, nice lady, but she's crazy.
Yeah, well, I think this guy, Joe Malahan, man, I really have to learn this guy's name. Seems like he's got the best possible position to beat Bruce Harrell. But I think the far leftists are going to win this election, unfortunately, because I think Bruce Harrell has done himself no favors. And I think that the far left controls Seattle now. I'm wondering if Seattle's lost cause. What do you think, Joe?
I'm going to be a little blunt. I'm not just, I'm to a point, and you know I love air shows. Most of your listeners know I love airplanes and air shows. I'm apprehensive about going to Seafair this year after what I experienced last year. And, all the drugs, prostitution, homelessness is still out of control. It's kind of safe around Seafair, and it'll be cleaned up for around Seafair. But, I don't see an effort to really deal with this, unlike with the East Side with superstar President Vanessa Kurtzer of Redmond.
Well, Joe, hang on one second. Hang on a second here, Joe, because I want to clear something up right now. The problem is you're very passionate about Seattle because you go there for work or you go there for fun, right? You don't actually live in Seattle, do you?
That's right.
That's the problem. You can't even vote. So you got this poll up there, but you can't even vote in the Seattle elections. I learned this the hard way when I ran for office. When I ran for office, I had tons of support. All these people telling me, yeah, my business is there. None of them could actually vote in Seattle. So while they supported my campaign, at the end of the day, they didn't show up to vote because they couldn't. And that's one of the big problems there. Mike doesn't live in Seattle. So as much as he's in your poll, he could be the mayor of SeaTac, but he can't be the mayor of Seattle. That's the problem you got there, is that so many people also are going to weigh in on this thing on an X poll. And people on X may not even live in the country, may not even live in the state. So, yeah, I hear where you're coming from, though. We need some more common sense restored to our area. Okay, do appreciate the love, though, buddy.
I'll hit the delete button on the poll right now, but I just wanted to try to see if we could try to help you out, try to get you elected somehow.
I'll tell you what, let's do this. Does anybody else support the Hoffman for Mayor poll that Joe's running right now, the write-in campaign for Ari Hoffman for Mayor? Text us or call us at 206-421-5757. Appreciate the call, Joe. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show or weigh in on that, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, I was watching Fox News this morning because Dan Bongino was over on Fox News, Deputy Director of the FBI, talking about how he's going to reshape the agency, which was really used to target political opponents beforehand, how we're actually going to fix this. Here's what he said.
The moment Cash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI. It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. You know, we had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet out on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the 3. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly. And in the cocaine in the White House, you know, I saw someone on social media, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. We work for you, but said, I don't care about the case. Yeah, I do. I was a Secret Service agent. A potentially hazardous material made its way into the White House. Nobody seems to know how it got there, and nobody seemed to investigate it fully. Like, you know, what planet do we live on where that's not of public interest?
He's exactly right. He's exactly right. The thing that bothers me the most is that pipe bomb investigation in front of the DNC and the RNC was just dropped. Just dropped? Nobody wanted to figure out who dropped pipe bombs in front of both party headquarters in Washington, D.C.? That's crazy. Had some other things to weigh in on, which I found pretty entertaining.
I got to tell you, of all the things that have surprised me in the close to now 3 months I've been here, is the depravity of Jim Comey. This man is a disgrace to the badge, the FBI, and the country. What he's doing right now, One, going out and taking shots at Cash. Cash doesn't belong. Cash was the chief of staff at the Department of. Cash is a patriot. Cash has served in numerous high-level roles, taking personal shots while you're on the beach, implying a threat towards the president and blaming your wife about it. And let me just add about James Comey, Saint Comey, who walks around there moralizing to everyone how wonderful of a human being he is. What you said is absolutely accurate. We have wasted countless man hours now running out tips to our tip line about people putting 8647 because of Jim Comey, because he cannot control himself and his emotions. He is a child. He is a big child. And let me tell you one more thing. Jim Comey, who wants you to believe. Jim Comey taking a shot at the president. Oh, look at me. I'm such a victim. The president's going after me. He's making a ton of money on this book. The only person that got prosecuted was the president. Jim Comey, we're finding stuff even now.
100% correct. 100% correct. But my favorite part is the quote he said about Seattle. He was asked about the persecution of Christians here in Seattle and the investigation by the FBI. And he said, freedom of religion isn't a suggestion. Which I want to put on bumper stickers, because that is a great, great line. You hearing us, Bruce Harrell? You getting the message, Bob Ferguson? You guys hearing what we're saying? Lots more to discuss as the show continues. Looks like Hamas has rejected yet another ceasefire deal. At what point are we actually going to say they're the bad guys in this one, or will the leftist activists ever learn? Probably not. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including tickets to see The Offspring on September 3rd at the White River Amphitheater. Yet another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com. You can also watch us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and of course, over on X. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Well, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, I have not been a fan of at all. And he announced one of the most insane, absolutely insane proposals for a ceasefire I have ever seen in the Middle East. But once again, this may be Trump being brilliant, or maybe it's just by accident. Let me tell you what it was. So we still have 58 hostages being held by Hamas. About 20 of them are alive. So here's the U.S.'s proposal, and this doesn't sound that different from Joe Biden. Ready? 10 living hostages in exchange for 1,111 terrorists. Oh, plus another 125 terrorists who are serving life sentences. So over 1,200 terrorists in exchange for 10 living hostages? In addition to that, Israel will stop its military operation in Gaza, and 18 dead hostages for another 180 terrorists. Are you insane? Are you out of your mind? But then I keep falling back to the beginning of the Abraham Accords, when they proposed this deal that was very pro-Palestinian, and I said, are you guys nuts? And maybe they proposed such a heavy Hamas-favored deal because they knew it would be rejected. And then they could say to the international community, guys, we gave them a sweetheart of the deal, and they're not doing the deal. So you know what? We're going to let Israel do what Israel wants to do. I'm not actually sure that happened this time because Steve Witkoff seems content with giving away the store. We blamed Joe Biden for a lot of those bad hostage deals at the beginning. I'm wondering if it was Steve Witkoff, because they all line up with this. Here's what the press secretary had to say about this today.
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. I won't comment further as we are in the midst of this right now.
Well, she said the last part, which I agree with. But do you think maybe Israel agreed to this because they know that Hamas always violates the ceasefire over time, and that once they violated it, they could go back in again and continue doing this? I'm just kind of tired of being on this merry-go-round. I really, really am. I'm tired of it. Now, what's been happening over the last couple of days is a discussion about aid going to Gaza. I personally am of the mindset that no aid should be going to an enemy while you're fighting them in war. It's insane. But Witkoff and the Trump administration have decided they want aid to get there. Now, at least they aren't like the Biden administration who goes, hey, Hamas, take all the aid. At least the U.S. is trying to find a way to do it in conjunction with Israel, where Israel distributes it, not Hamas. So what they're doing is the U.S. and Israel are partnering up to do this themselves. And it's been 50-50 successful. Let's put it that way. The Gazans it's successful with are praising Trump and are praising Bibi Netanyahu and are praising America. I don't believe it for 2 seconds, but that's what they're doing. On the other hand, some of these Gazans have overrun checkpoints and overrun storehouses and refused to wait in line and have caused riots, and the IDF has had to fire weapons in the air to disperse crowds. It's gotten so out of control. That's unfortunately the culture in Gaza. Let's remember when Israel turned over Gaza in 2005. There were all these greenhouses that were built specifically for them to have agriculture. That was built by Jewish donors in America. And the Gazans came and ransacked the whole thing and took everything for parts. Destroyed the greenhouses. Millions of dollars worth of greenhouses. But when they're going into these distribution centers, into these warehouses, you know what they're finding? Hamas was hoarding everything. As we said, Hamas was hoarding everything from themselves. They weren't distributing aid. They weren't distributing it. Hamas was the government of Gaza. They weren't giving it out to the people of Gaza. If you want an end to this conflict, that means an end to Hamas. That's how you have to end it. Unfortunately, it seems like in America, some people are going the other direction. One of our wonderful listeners, the Bear Jew, sent us this today from Super UW. Super UW, if you don't remember, they are the group that was suspended from University of Washington for causing over $50,000 in damage to the Husky Union building. They're also the group that participated in vandalizing the engineering building to the tune of $1 million. Here's what they posted today. Join Super UW for our upcoming teach-in, The Right to Resist, Al-Aqsa Flood, and Armed Resistance. So, talking about glorifying terrorists because the name of the operation that killed over 1,200 people in Israel and took over 250 people hostage was called Al-Aqsa Flood. Armed Resistance? This teaching will cover why we commemorate Al-Aqsa Flood is not only a victory for the resistance, so the rape, torture, brutal murder. The next time you guys are out there saying women's rights or any of the other progressive ideology nonsense, yeah, you're full of it. They also call it a scientific necessity amid decades of settler colonial violence. Wow. They're literally hitting all the intersectional G-spots right here. That's what they're doing. Additionally, we will address disinformation used to enable the genocide against the Palestinians currently unfolding. You guys are literally discussing a genocide against the Jews. You're discussing how to kill Jews, how to kill Israelis, how to kill Christians against the Palestinians currently unfolding, and why it is vital for us to stand in solidarity with the resistance. And there is a picture, a graphic from October 7th at the bottom of this post. These are our college kids. These are the college kids at the University of Washington. You know what's crazy to me? They're still allowed to table at the University of Washington. And some of you will say, Ari, didn't you just spend an entire episode talking about free speech and who gets to be somewhere? So you disagree with these guys? You don't want them at the University of Washington? They are criminals who vandalized more than $1 million worth of damage to the campus. They should all be suspended. They should all be expelled. They should not be allowed on campus anymore because they are criminals. That's the difference. On top of that, sedition is a crime. Treason is a crime. Colluding with a terrorist organization is a crime, and that's exactly what these guys are doing. But they have captured our institutions of higher learning, which is just something. Let me tell you that. It's a sad state of affairs. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win tickets to The Offspring, tickets to an advanced screening of Ballerina, and a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. But first, I do like all the love over on the text line, guys, about running for mayor. I do like Gordon. Skip mayor, go for governor. You mean me against the turd? I think that would just be the line right there, right? Flush the turd. Wouldn't that just be our campaign motto? I think that would be pretty entertaining. All right, switching gears to the good news kind of stuff. Enough of politics for the day. Mike, I'm going to need your expertise on this story because I have a question because I'm unfamiliar with part of this.
Sure, what's up?
Okay, so according to WKRC, a popular retailer has entered the pizza delivery business. Sam's Club has announced Thursday that its popular members' Mark 16-inch hot-baked pizza is now available for delivery at most locations across the country, with plans to expand to all clubs by the end of the month. Now, first of all, I thought there weren't as many Sam's Clubs anymore. Didn't they close a whole bunch of them? I thought they got rid of those. Yes. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, does Costco deliver pizza or you got to go get it? So you got to go get it every single time.
Yeah, but I will say as a bonus, oftentimes there will be folks literally walking around the Costco warehouse with baked pizzas already ready to go.
Sure.
So it's like, so while you're like checking out, it's like almost like going to the ballpark. It'd be like, oh, hey, pizza dude. Oh, you want a pie and throw that on there? And I haven't done that because I have no use of a fully cooked hot pizza while I'm at Costco. I'm more of a hot dog person.
But also, you're not spending that much time. I mean, I know you love your Costco time.
I do.
But at the same time, I mean, a pizza's a lot to eat and messy and things.
Yes.
Like a hot dog's more contained.
Quite so.
Right, while you're going along.
Well, I'm not eating a hot dog while I'm at Costco.
No,
I
it's
get
for
it after the Costco.
Yeah, it's for later the Costco. I understand. See, I've seen people actually walk out with the par-baked pizzas at Costco. I've seen them do that before also, which I thought was clever and interesting.
Sure.
But, okay, so what's the turnaround time on a pizza? You walk up, normal crowd at Costco, not a crazy day. What's the turnaround time?
I don't know. Probably a few minutes.
Few minutes, my God. I'm missing out.
Because the pizzas are already made. They just and the oven's already hot. They just
throw them in and bring them out. Yeah. Okay. This is how lousy our kosher restaurants here in Seattle.
I mean, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, that looks amazing. I'm very, very envious. So anyway, Sam's Club is now going to be delivering these things. There's no Are there any Sam's Clubs around here anymore?
Well, let me ask again.
Yeah. Okay,
No.
so that's not going to be good for you. But the service does include
R.I.P. Sam's Club.
Yeah.
Or something.
I always like Costco better anyway, but that's just me.
Well, it's your only choice.
Yeah. Service includes an express delivery option, promising arrival in less than 3 hours. In less than 3 hours? That's
not the flex you think it is.
Guys, you got Domino's, and I'm pretty sure they're 30 minutes or less, and you're in less than 3 hours, priced at $8.98. Ah, there it is. How much is a Domino's pizza these days? I don't even know the price.
I don't even know.
Okay.
I haven't stayed at a skunky hotel in a out of state city for a while, so I don't know.
Less than 3 hours? Man, that's a low bar, really low bar, but okay. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi, and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement. Support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. We are also giving away two tickets to an advanced screening of Ballerina, taking place during the events of John Wick Chapter 3. The film follows a trained assassin played by Ana de Armas, who sets out to seek out revenge after her father's death. Ballerina is in theaters on June 6th. Last but certainly not least, my friends, we're giving away two tickets to The Offspring at the White River Amphitheater on September 3rd. Countdown is on. Get $30 concert tickets to select shows at White River Amphitheater, Chateau Ste. Michelle, and The Gorge on sale now. Make it a summer of live music with your $30 ticket to summer. KVI also has your chance to win tickets to the Offspring Supercharged Worldwide 25 Tour at the White River Amphitheater with Jimmy Eat World and Newfound Glory on September 3rd. Get your tickets for the Offspring and your tickets to summer at livenation.com/ticket-to-summer. That sounds like an awesome show. That really sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. This is great.
That's a killer lineup. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun.
You know, I really got to go on the website and see the other things that they're having at these venues for the $30 concert ticket series. I got to go check out our own website. The thing I talk about every single day. You know what, Mike, do me a favor. Give me a reminder tomorrow to actually look at those and some of the other shows we have because I'd love to see the other stuff they got going on there. So for sure, got to do that. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniels Brother gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, 2 tickets to an advanced screening of Ballerina, and 2 tickets to the Offspring at the White River Amphitheater on September 3rd. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. I really got to do something about the blinds in here. That sunset that I now get to look at every single day because it's lighter, longer, because the summer's coming is really starting to kill me in here, but that's my problem, not yours. Good news for all of you. We will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and of course, more giveaways. You are listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.